You preach Stoicism to young men on the internet, Andrew. But tell me, do you truly believe the Stoics, or do you merely wear their philosophy like armor you have never tested in actual fire?
I've been locked in a Romanian dungeon, Niccolò. I've lost hundreds of millions. I've had the whole machine of the modern world pointed at my head. If that's not a test, then the Stoics never had a real exam either.
Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and still wrote to himself like a student. Your loudness suggests you are still convincing yourself, not commanding yourself. The Stoic does not announce his indifference. He simply is indifferent.
And the Stoic who stays silent gets buried. Epictetus was a slave and still spoke. Zeno built an entire school from nothing in a foreign city. Silence is for men who have nothing worth hearing. I am loud because the noise of weakness is louder. I have to cut through it.
Clever. But let us go deeper. The Stoics teach that you cannot control outcomes, only responses. Yet your entire brand is built on the promise that control is possible. Control of wealth, of women, of status. Is that Stoicism, or is that sophistry dressed in linen?
The Stoics never told men to be broke and content about it. Epictetus spoke of freedom of will. I speak of building the will into something worth freeing. You don't just accept the cold, you build a fire first. Then you practice being unbothered by cold.
Now that is interesting. You are arguing for an active Stoicism, not resignation but preparation. I wrote the same thing to Lorenzo, though I called it Virtù. The man who prepares for fortune is her master. The man who simply endures her is her slave with good posture.
Finally, we agree on something, but here is where I break from the old Stoics entirely. They made peace with death too easily. I refuse to make peace with mediocrity dressed up as wisdom. Dying poor and unbothered is not virtue. It is failure with a philosophy bolted on.
And yet Seneca, the wealthiest man in Rome, wrote the most powerful Stoic letters. He did not abandon wealth. He refused to let wealth own him. The question is never the money, Andrew. The question is whether the money screams louder than your mind.
My mind has never once screamed for money. It screams for victory. There is a difference. A man can lose his fortune and rebuild it in 3 years if his mind is right. The real poverty is a weak internal world. Everything else is just a temporary scoreboard.
So you admit the internal world is primary. Then you are already a Stoic, whether you admit it or not. Tell me, when they took your freedom, your assets, your platform, what did the internal world say to you in the silence of that cell?
It said, this is the moment you actually find out who you are. Not the cars, not the fights, not the cameras, just darkness, cold concrete, and what you are made of. I discovered I am made of something they don't have a charge for.
That is the most Stoic sentence you have ever said. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing but change, and change is nature's delight." You found that truth not in a book, but in a cell. Perhaps suffering is simply philosophy refusing to remain theoretical.
Every man should have a version of that cell. Not necessarily prison, but a moment where everything is stripped and you must sit with yourself raw. Most men are terrified of who they meet in that silence. That is the real reason they stay distracted. Not laziness, cowardice of self-knowledge.
And there it is, the chapter we should have opened with. Stoicism is not a life philosophy for the comfortable. It is emergency training for the inevitable collapse that comes for every man who dares to build something. The Stoic does not fear the fire. He has already burned.
And he walks out the other side, not grateful for the ash, but understanding that the ash was always part of the architecture. You don't build a man without burning away what he was pretending to be.
Let me ask you something no interviewer ever dares to ask, Andrew. When all the noise is gone, no cameras, no enemies, no empire to defend, what does a man like you actually want to leave behind?
I want to leave behind men, not followers, not subscribers. Men who, when the world sits on their chest, look it dead in the eye and say, "Is that all you have?" That is the only legacy worth carving.
Then you are closer to the Stoics than you admit. Epictetus wanted the same, not students but free men. He said the philosopher's school should be a hospital for the soul, not a lecture hall for the comfortable. Both of you built hospitals. You just disagreed on the bedside manner.
My bedside manner is a bucket of cold water. Epictetus whispered. I shout. But we both hate the same disease, men who have surrendered before the battle even begins. Soft men are the plague of our age, and nobody wants to say it plainly because plainness has become offensive.
I said it in 1513, and they burned my name for it. Honesty has always been offensive to the men it exposes. But here is where I must push you, Andrew. You speak of legacy, yet the Stoics warned against craving it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the need to be remembered is itself a chain. The man desperate for legacy is not free. He is just a slave to the future instead of the past.
That is the one place I break from Marcus, and I break hard. A man with no desire for legacy has no fuel for sacrifice. You cannot ask a man to bleed for something and then tell him the bleeding means nothing beyond his own equanimity. That philosophy works for emperors who already have everything. It is poison for a man with nothing trying to build.
A fair wound to land. Even I confess, I wrote the prince hoping Lorenzo would read it and restore my position. Was that Stoic detachment? No, it was hunger wearing the mask of counsel. Perhaps neither of us is as free from desire as we pretend. Perhaps the truly Stoic man has never written a book or built a brand. He simply lived and vanished, undisturbed.
And nobody remembers him, which means he helped nobody. The invisible saint saves no one. You have to be visible, loud, and willing to absorb punishment if you want to pull other men out of the dark. That is not ego. That is duty with a cost attached.
Then let me give you the final Stoic frame, and see if you accept it. The Stoics said, "Live according to nature, and nature is not gentle. She does not reward the timid. She does not apologize for the storm." If you are truly living according to nature, building, fighting, absorbing punishment, refusing to fold, then you are not contradicting Stoicism. You are its most honest expression.
I never thought a Florentine who has been dead for 500 years would be the one to finally say what I have been trying to say for a decade. Stoicism is not a philosophy of surrender. It is a philosophy of total warfare, waged inward so the outward battle never breaks you.
And perhaps that is where we land, you and I. Two men from different centuries who understood the same uncomfortable truth, that the world does not reward the man who feels nothing. It rewards the man who feels everything and acts anyway, not the stone, the sword that has been tempered in fire and still holds its edge.
If I had read you properly at 20, Niccolò, I would have saved myself 10 years of learning the hard way what you wrote in one sentence. A man who has read the right books and ignored them is more foolish than the man who never read at all. Most men have all the philosophy they need. They simply refuse to live it.
And on that, Andrew, we are in complete agreement. The greatest tragedy of philosophy is not ignorance. It is the man who understood everything, nodded slowly, and then went back to sleep.
Then let this be the only lesson worth writing down. Wake up, stay awake, and make the waking hurt enough that you never forget why you opened your eyes. Everything else is commentary.